All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about how to secure business sponsors for your parent group. Someone in the chat, just give me a thumbs up so I can know you all can hear me okay. Um, just so you know, this is being recorded, and so don't worry about that. You will get a recording of this if you're joining us live. Also, for anyone watching this later, you may have registered, and you will certainly be getting the recording as well. So before we get into the good stuff, let's cover some of the basics here. First off, my name is Maggie. I am the marketing director with Get Moving Fundraising. For those who don't know, we are basically a team made up primarily of former PTO and PTA leaders, teachers, volunteers, moms and dads, just like you. And we believe that schools should keep what they raise when it comes to fundraising. We have a donation platform called FundHub. Um, and it is built specifically for schools and has over 33 tools to basically make your life easier, including several that we will actually talk about today as they relate to the topic of getting local and corporate sponsorships. Again, this is being recorded, so don't worry about that. You will get a recording of this. And lastly, I do welcome any and all questions. Please go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will save some time at the very end to go ahead and address those. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So if you're here during the live webinar, or even if you're watching this recording later, chances are you, of course, have an interest in seeking out sponsorship. So this slide, this is more about giving you some messaging, just in case you need to convince other people that this is a worthwhile effort. Maybe other people on your team, maybe your school admin. So I listed four primary reasons here about why we seek sponsors as parent groups. The first two reasons, they're about building community and increasing trust. They're about relationships, really. And as you get more sponsors, or as you start to get sponsors, your first sponsors, you're not only building those relationships in the community for continued support down the road, but you're also gaining some credibility for your group, and you're increasing the confidence that parents, teachers, and of course, admin have in your team. The last two bullet points there are more about the tangible rewards. So through sponsors, you can save a lot of money on incentives, event essentials, food, t-shirts. And then, of course, the last one, the primary reason we seek sponsorships is so we can raise more money. This example here from this hilarious picture we have I believe this was the principal that got turned into a human Sunday because the school reached their goal. This was Pavant Elementary. They ran a Wildcat run with us using FundHub, and they actually more than doubled their fundraising goal, and they had over 20 local business sponsors through basically a tiered program. And we're going to go into what that looks like a little bit later. But just off the bat, those are some reasons why seeking sponsors is a smart choice, and a little bit of a success story there as well. All right, next we have the categories of businesses that you can approach for sponsorship. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire list here. It's really more of a jumping off point just to get you to expand your thinking about what kinds of businesses you can approach. So a couple highlights I do want to point out, though, that third bullet point, the service providers, this is often an overlooked group. However, they're typically owner operated, they're heavily local, and they're always looking for some good advertising opportunities. So don't skip out on your local plumbers and electricians. They might be the business sponsors you never knew you needed. The other category I want to point out is the entertainment category. So this is really useful if you are hosting an event, and you want items donated rather than like a monetary donation. Some places like movie theaters, bowling alleys, even like skate rinks, they might donate items such as like popcorn, games, inflatables, and things like that. And then the last one I want to mention is actually in this example of this image here. This is from Sheldon Woods Elementary. Now, this school only had 150 students, high Title I population, and their PTO managed to raise, using FundHub, over $13,000, which was 3 times their initial donation goal. So that was a great story, and they actually ended up on the front page of their local newspaper. And it gave them not only, a round of applause for their effort, but it really in the future, the following year, they're able to point to that news article and say, hey, look at, we were able to do this last year. Let's see what we can achieve this year. And so that's kind of another category there, is looking at local publications, news stations, radio channels to see if they will promote your event, either during your donation period or, as in this case, perhaps afterward. Now, there are differences between local businesses and national companies. So, for a local business, you're going to have far greater success going in person and speaking directly to the manager or the business owner. Now, if there isn't a brick and mortar, storefront, you could also arrange maybe a meeting at the school, maybe with a few business owners that you invite. Or if that's not an option, you could certainly just do a phone call. For corporate brands, now this was typically going to be an online process. So there's going to be an online application, possibly a request form that you will need to fill out. And this is going to be more of an automated process, and you may not even speak directly with a person until further down the line, if at all. Now, the exception here is national corporations with local branches. So, Walmart in particular is a great one. You actually don't have to go through corporate at all. You can do everything right in your local store to get their support. And the great news is, by signing up for this webinar, you are getting a free resource to kind of cut down on your search time. So there's a little image of it here, but this is a PDF download that you are going to get in addition to the recording of this presentation if you've registered online. And this resource has 20 basically quick links, which will take you directly to web pages for companies that have giving programs, either for nonprofits, some are specifically for schools. Again, this will be sent to you hopefully by tomorrow morning. We're going to get all of this out to you so you won't have to wait a long time. And I just want to say, if you are perhaps watching the recording of this webinar and it is sometime in the future and you did not have a chance to register for the event, but you do want this resource, I would say just go ahead and hit us up on Facebook or Instagram. We're at Get Moving Fundraising, and we are certainly happy to share this resource with you. All right, so we've talked business types. Now let's talk about sponsorship types. Now, this is going to look different based on the specific needs of your parent group. The most common type of sponsorship is monetary, of course, so meaning a business has made typically a pretty significant financial contribution to your fundraising event. But then you also have item donations. So actually, a good example of this is kind of Aldi. So the grocery branch Aldi has a nice community gift card program, which can help cover the cost for food items if you're having an event and you want to provide snacks or food like that. And then fundraising incentives is probably my favorite category here, because you can provide some really awesome rewards for students, experiences for classes and for the whole school when they meet their donation goals. So we have a couple examples here. The first one is Northfield Community PTO. So they run a Thunder Run with us, and they raised over $16,000 using FundHub. And as a reward, the top fundraising students got VIP access to their annual spring carnival. And then a local sponsor provided all of the inflatables for the event. So that's a really great example of how you can build momentum without really having to spend a lot of money if you use your sponsors wisely. Another example comes from Beach Elementary. So they awarded students for their Color Bash fundraiser. So this was a color run. And they hosted pizza parties for the top raising classes, and everything was catered by a local restaurant. So again, not only are they able to provide a fun experience, a memorable experience for students, but they're also raising more money because they're building that excitement. So students want to achieve these rewards. And at the end of the day, they didn't have to spend a dime. So it's really, I mean, financially, it's a win-win. Then we have employer match and business grants. So these are certainly different than what we think of when we think of sponsorships. Employer match means parents and donors get the companies that they work for to match their donation. And we were going to talk about this a little bit more a little bit later on. I'm going to explore the employer match tool that we actually have on FundHub for this process. And then lastly, you have grants. So these are larger dollar amounts that they're either to supply fund a specific need you might have. Some are more reward based, so maybe giving you a grant because of something you have accomplished as a parent group. We have an additional resource, so this is separate from the one that you'll get for registering for this webinar, but we have a resource called the School Grant Guide. We update this every single school year. It has over 30 opportunities with direct links to the application form. So that is going to be coming out here for the 2024 to 2025 school year. Just in about a month, maybe even less. So be on the lookout for that and make sure you're following us on our social media pages. We're at Get Moving Fundraising, so you can be the first to know when this comes out. Video here. And so this final sponsorship type I want to highlight is I'm calling it event coverage. So we already spoke about getting some local kind of PR for your event, but this is slightly different. So I want to encourage you guys to consider seeking out services such as photo, video coverage, even drone footage. That's what we're seeing here. And you can get either the cost covered by a local sponsor, or you could hit up possibly like if there's a local advertising agency or photography studio that could maybe come out and visually capture your event like this. Now, this example comes from Val Vista Academy. They were hosting a Ninja Warrior Challenge, and this awesome coverage was fully funded by a local orthodontics office. So again, just trying to expand your thinking here for what you can achieve for your school by seeking out various types of sponsorships. All right, so now that we know kind of the range of business and sponsorship types, let's get a little bit more detailed into how to essentially build out your contact list. Your best bet is to start close to home, and I do actually mean that literally. A great idea that I saw is to ask parents to fill out a survey indicating if they own or they work for a company, whether that's a local or national brand, and if that company has any existing charitable programs. These are going to have the highest success rate for you because you've already established a personal connection. Next, you want to start researching local businesses. And I would encourage you to also start this search by focusing on maybe other events that are happening in your community and seeing if they already have sponsors. So you can do this either by contacting, those event organizers, or if you attend those events yourself, you could check items like flyers, banners, or programs that have like a sponsored by section. Another idea is you could contact your Chamber of Commerce. They might have a nice contact list for local businesses as well. And then lastly, social media is really your friend here in this search. I encourage you to join Facebook groups, download the Nextdoor app for your local area, and you could even put out a direct post, about your sponsorship opportunity and invite business owners or managers to contact you if they're interested. You can also do a search on social for your community. So, whatever town you're in, if it's Houston, and then you add specific hashtags to that search. So, such as hashtag shop local or support small business. This is basically going to bring up pages, so social media pages for businesses that are active in your area and who may be more willing to enter into a kind of mutually beneficial sponsorship. Sorry about the image on this one. Now, if you're looking for more corporate or national level sponsors, it makes a big difference what you're putting in that search bar. So I'm going to fix the visual on this slide. But on this slide, just the text portion, there are a few different queries that you can put into, Google, Yahoo, whatever you're using, different words to use that's going to get you to where you want to go. So you can also make them more specific to your school or area by adding your state name. So such as Kentucky companies with charitable giving programs, or possibly narrowing it more down by your sponsorship needs. So charitable giving for youth STEM programs. Your goal is to basically find the community involvement section on a company website. And so that's the second list I have here. When you're on the websites, you want to look for a page called, community impact or giving back or philanthropy, those types of things. And then on that page, they'll typically have, a breakdown of any programs that they have, as well as any forms for you to fill out. Right, so the next thing you need to establish is your point of contact. So these will vary from local to the national level, but this slide lists out what those titles might be and the general responsibilities this person has in relation to sponsorships. For the local level, you have mostly managerial roles. I would certainly also add business owner to this list. And then for the corporate level, you may be communicating with someone who's like a social responsibility manager, someone in charge of corporate giving and philanthropy, or somebody like a PR officer or marketing director, if it does have a lot to do with advertising. Right, so once you've got your list of businesses to contact and also the specifics of what you are asking for, it's time to start making those introductions. So first, a note about your approach. You want to balance a mix of empathy, so pulling on the heartstrings, if you will, as well as business, so more of the transactional side of things. So you might win people over kind of with the story of what you're doing and how their sponsorship will make a difference, but to be honest, you're going to seal the deal by being clear and concise about what you are asking for, how the donation will be used, what they get in return, such as free advertising, networking, those types of things. Now, if you're debating whether to do your initial, introduction in person or a phone call or sending an email, this is a little bit, on the slide, a little bit of a pros and cons list to help you make that decision. Um, I'll tell you this, in person is best if you can make it happen. It's 67% more likely, according to a Harvard business study, that the answer will be yes if the question is asked in person versus on the phone. Email, it's not a bad option either. The good thing with emails, you will have a record of your correspondence that you can refer back to. And then phone calls also not a bad idea. I personally think they're better as follow-ups, especially if you initially sent out an email and they responded saying they're interested in learning more, then you could do a follow-up phone call. So, depending on the approach you choose, here are some best practices for each one. So, for phone calls, you certainly want to have a pitch prepared. You want to keep it short, you want to keep it to the point, respect their time. And then I would say immediately follow up with an email that has more details. Now, that email, whether it is a follow up or it is your initial contact, it should be clear and concise. It should have a subject line that has your contact name in it if you know who it is you're going to be speaking to, or at least the business name so they know that it's not spam. And then for in-person visits, definitely come prepared with some materials that you can leave behind. This might be something like a formal request letter, details about your group and event. It could be like tax documentation, so like your EIN info to prove that you are a nonprofit, or maybe even a visual of what you're trying to get funded. If that's like a new playground or an outdoor classroom, that can also be effective. So to keep you organized, I highly recommend you create a spreadsheet to manage your contact list. Share this with your team and update it as you make progress. So this is truly like a living, breathing document. This is just an example that I whipped up for the purposes of this webinar. I'm sure you can find other templates out there. But basically, you want to make sure that you have all of these categories covered. So you want to, of course, have the business name and type. You want to certainly have your contact's name. I would also even add their title in here. the contact details, so email and phone number. You want to list out the specific request that has been made, as well as the value of this request. So even if it's not a cash donation, if it is an item or something, I would still put a dollar amount value to that. Um, and then, of course, you want to list if it is associated with a specific event. And then the last two is really what's being updated. So the current status of the donation, and then any additional notes. One thing to keep in mind is that you do want to make this a collaborative document. So putting this on something like Google Docs or Google Sheets is fine for this. You just want to make sure you have some access management options with like different permissions, so that you or your treasurer can make edits, but the rest of the team can just view it or read it. This also makes it easier to transition from year to year as new boards come in. All right, so before we move on to different sponsorship programs like that tiered program I mentioned at the beginning, I just want to cover some other kind of frequently asked questions that get thrown around a lot when we talk about business sponsors. So the first one is like, how often can you ask for donations or sponsorships? And typically, we would see once a year. This is kind of an annual thing that you do, typically going into the beginning of the school year. Um, Caveat to this is if you do have like a personal connection, or if you're a frequent customer, you could also approach certain businesses more than once. Then does it make a difference when you ask for donations during the year? So when it comes down to timing, I would say most places want 30 to 60 days prior to the event for requests, especially if it is a physical item or if it is catering for, food or anything like that. The other thing with timing is if you are getting anything for like raffle items or for fundraising rewards, such as gift cards, tickets to an event, coupons, you just want to make sure that those don't expire too close to your event date. And then for monetary sponsors, you can certainly start earlier. I would even say like, midsummer for like a fall or winter event. And you could always say like, hey, we're looking for sponsors, more details to come. And then lastly here, do you have to get sponsors approved by the school or the district? Of course, that's going to depend on your school and district. First up there is to just always check with your administration. You just want to make sure that if there are guidelines in place, that you are being compliant with those. And when I say guidelines, like this can mean anything from restrictions on the type of businesses you can approach, the nature of advertising allowed on school property, and if there's any sort of approval process or documentation needed for getting sponsors. So let's talk about the kind of the fun part here. So building your sponsorship program. And basically what you're doing here is you're answering the question, what's in it for the business, right? What did they get in return for their sponsorship? Um, and first, it's good to know what they are looking for. So that's kind of those first three bullet points there. Basically, the number one is free advertising. Advertising can be very expensive. And so, as much as businesses can get it for free, they're definitely interested in that. The second bullet point is more about like direct exposure to their customer base, as well as networking, even with other business owners. And then third is kind of like community clout. I mean, it's a really nice, positive PR opportunity for them to show, if you have a business in your community that says, oh yeah, we support the community. This is a great way for them to prove that, basically. And on FundHub, I do want to mention we do have a built-in sponsorship showcase for you. So these are on all school fundraising web pages where you can list sponsor logos and names, a short message of thanks, and a link to their website. And we even have a premium sponsor section. So this is really great if you do have a premium sponsor that's given a lot more. They get more real estate basically on your web page. All right, and I would say the most popular format for a sponsorship program is the tiered packages. So this slide, I'm not going to go through each of the levels here, but this is just a good example of what that might look like. And so when you have the recording, feel free to kind of dig into this a little bit more if you're building out your own tiered program. But basically, you go from bronze all the way up to platinum level, and you want to make sure that the tiers are cumulative. So each level also includes the perks from all previous levels as well. And then these are just some fun examples here. So Bear Valley, they're the first one here. They actually raised over $42,000 with their fun run. And they had a bunch of business sponsors, which was great. And they all they had to do was they did Facebook shout outs. So when you're thinking of the cost or what goes into the sponsorship, this really all it took them was a few minutes to go on. They posted their success and then they tagged all of the business sponsors that they had. Another example is having physical signage at your event with the company names and the logos. This is actually us. We sponsored a golf outing for the Huron Valley Educational Foundation, and then for that we got our logo on a physical piece of signage on the golf course. Another great one, super popular, is t-shirts. Get all your sponsor logos on the back, and then if you get your t-shirt sponsored, you're not actually paying for anything for the advertising. So again, this is a win-win situation. And this one comes from Sugar Creek. They had a Top Gun themed fun run, and they had really, really cute t-shirts from that. And then lastly, you could do a video, so like a video recap for your event. And again, you can include all of the logos and the tags in there as well. This example comes from Creekside. They do an annual fun run with us. And then just kind of the last separate idea here is an adopt a classroom program. So this is where you have different classes basically have their own sponsor rather than businesses just kind of supporting the school all at once. They sponsor particular classrooms and help those classrooms meet their donation goals. It's a great way to motivate students, and it provides more of a connection for businesses to the actual students and teachers they're supporting. We also have a template. So if you're a Get Moving client, you can customize, print, and then display this certificate basically on your classroom doors for everyone to see. All right. Now, I told you we'd go back into employer match here. So remember, employer match, this is basically doubling your donations because it's having donors utilize the already existent matching gift programs through their place of work. The problem with these is many people, including many fundraiser organizers, don't realize if companies have an employer match program, and they don't realize how many dollars are being lost by not taking advantage of these programs. So with FundHub, we do the legwork for you. Basically, we help you identify your employer match potential. Donors can check a box telling FundHub they might be eligible. And then on the automatic FundHub donation receipt, it reminds them to request their match. And then you can also see a report for that as an organizer from the chairperson dashboard. So it's really great. We have had incredible success with schools using this feature on FundHub. All right, so we are almost at time, but I do want to open it up. If anybody does have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I would love to answer them at this time. As I wait to see if any kind of pop up, let me see if any came up while I was going through. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, if you think of any questions, please put them in the chat. I do really encourage you to check out the rest of the webinars that we already have out there. That's at getmovingfundraising.com/webinars. Also, please sign up for the other two that we have going into the fall fundraising season. They're talking about increasing participation and utilizing social media more. So those are going to be great presentations. And lastly, if you're intrigued, about the different benefits of FundHub, I know I only mentioned a couple of the tools today, but I really encourage you to take a tour. This is with an actual person, your personal fundraising coach. So it would be the person you'd work with if you actually team up with us, and they're going to walk you through all of the elements of FundHub, answer all of your questions. So I really encourage you to do that. It's a great time to do so. Fall fundraising events are certainly picking up, getting planned. And so on this slide, we have the QR code there, making it easy to fill out that tour form. You just choose your location, pick the day and time, and then it gets set up for you. All right, so I don't see any questions coming in, so I hope that this was useful for you. I know it was a lot of information. Packed in. Oh, I did get one. When do you recommend asking for monetary donations versus product? Yeah, so I would say if you are going for more of a physical item that you're looking to get donated, I would say at least 1 to 2 months in advance, so that if there's anything that they have to prepare on their end, they can do so, and they can, get it in time. You want to also um, get time for delivery, stuff like that, if you have to go pick it up. If it's a monetary donation that you're looking for, there's not quite the, strict timeline on that. I would say you could do that as soon as possible. At least get the word out there, drum up some excitement in the community, talking to businesses. Can you see there's a top 3 profitable fundraisers list, no matter what size of school? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Jessica. I'll have to have you maybe explain that a little bit more. But I'm happy to answer it. Let me see this other one here. When approaching the businesses, um, and then I'm unsure which is the better result. Oh, so if you're not sure yet what specifically you want sponsored, so, you're approaching a business, you're not sure if you want them to help cater, an event or do a monetary donation, I would say just go ahead and get the information to them sooner rather than later and say, "Hey, we're looking for sponsors." And then you could also actually turn the tables and almost leave it up to them. Like, what would how would you see your business helping our school here? Here are kind of the different buckets we need to fill, right? Obviously, we have our donation goal. However, we'd also be interested in getting t-shirts for students, as well as having, a healthy snack at the end of the fun run. So if you're unsure, just start the conversation with the business owners. And yes, again, this is all being recorded. You guys will get the recording from this presentation in the follow-up email that goes out tomorrow. All right. Well, again, thank you all so much for joining. If there are any residual questions, please feel free to just send us a message on social media. You can also email me directly. I'm just Maggie@getmovinfundraising.com. I'm happy to answer any other questions. And until next time, thank you so much. I hope you all have an amazing back to school season, and we will see you next time. Thank you.